Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to be talking about imposter syndrome. If you've never heard of this, don't worry. I'll catch you up on what it is and why you shouldn't worry about it quite as much. So let's start with defining what is imposter syndrome. This is something that pretty much every single person is going to have at one point or another in their life. It's that feeling of you don't quite belong, typically because you feel like your abilities are not as good as those around you, okay? So the classic example would be like a sports team. So you try out, you make a team, and you start going to practice and you think to yourself, God, these other people around me are pretty good. Actually, they're a lot better than me. You know, maybe the coach made a mistake. Maybe I shouldn't have made this team. Maybe I'm not quite good enough. That's imposter syndrome. And I think that all of us have had this at some level throughout our life, but I know personally for me and from talking to some other people that I've gotten to know well over the years, it's hit harder in graduate school and even beyond, as in like a postdoc or transitioning to industry or whatever your career may be afterwards. I'm sure that new faculty members also get this. But graduate school is when it hit really hard. And I also had it hit hard when I was a postdoc. When I first started graduate school, I had that feeling of, wow, like maybe I'm not smart enough to be here. You know, maybe I'm not cut out for this. And then the same thing happened when I moved into a postdoc and I said, you know what, like these other people at Harvard they're smarter than me. Like maybe I just don't belong here. And in both cases, it was just me getting inside my own head, okay? So now that we kind of know what imposter syndrome is, that feeling of your ability is not good enough, why is it something I think that we shouldn't worry about, that we should kind of try to drown out these feelings? The reason is when you start talking to people, everybody's feeling it. Nobody's broadcasting it on a loud horn going, I have imposter syndrome. No, they don't do that. They keep it to themselves. But if you talk to enough people, you're going to find that this is a very common thing. And a lot of people have this. You're not alone. Okay, so now what can we actually do to try to deal with this imposter syndrome? Well, the first thing is just understanding that imposter syndrome is an actual thing, and it doesn't just happen to grad students, okay? This could happen anywhere, in any career. You know, it happens to people all over the world. So just understanding that there is such a thing as imposter syndrome, that this is a natural feeling and that others have this feeling is really the first step towards trying to be able to overcome the imposter syndrome that you may be feeling, to understand that this is a legitimate thing that people deal with, okay? Now, as far as actual strategies, I think the first thing that we are gonna have to do is learn to bring out our wins and accept our losses. So what do I mean by that? The first thing is to understand that sometimes, even if we have this imposter syndrome, doesn't mean that it's because everything goes wrong, okay? Sometimes you could have things that are going right in your career and you could still feel like you don't belong, okay? But what you want to try to do is when you do have things go right, you want to actually try to stand on those accomplishments, stand up, say, look what I accomplished, that this is really good, and feel good about yourself that like, hey, you know what? I got this experiment to work, or I got the result that I was looking for, or I did well in that class on a test in that class that I, maybe was having trouble with before. Stand tall and feel proud of those accomplishments. And when something goes wrong, we need to stop looking at it as the dead end that, I need to always have the answers, and that when I don't and this goes wrong, that this is bad. Look at it as, the classic example, again, going back to sports is, what can we learn from this experience, okay? Same thing in the lab, okay? Especially the more junior grad students. A lot of times you're so used to coming from undergrad and high school where everything came easy and everything always was right for you. And now you're thrown into a situation where you're doing these experiments and nothing works and you're not used to failure. And it makes you feel like maybe they made a mistake letting me into this grad program. But that's not true. They've been doing this a long time. They know what they're looking for. They picked you for a reason, okay? Don't feel that way. Look at it this way. The more times that you have an experiment go wrong, later down the road, you're going to be able to better troubleshoot that experiment, okay? That your PI or the senior postdoc in your lab that's able to look at your results and go, that's where you went wrong, it's not because they're some genius. It's because they're drawing upon their own experience. They did the exact same experiment and got the same result you did, and they know when you mess up at points A, B, and C, this is what the result's gonna look like. So look at it as each time you make a mistake or something doesn't quite go the way you want, it's a learning experience. Keep that, put it in your back pocket, and pull it out later when something else doesn't go right for you or somebody else, okay? And draw upon those experiences. It's gonna strengthen you as a scientist, okay? So what else can we do? I think that what we need to do is overall, from there, try to change your overall mindset, okay? A lot of us have this really unhealthy relationship with perfectionism. And it's fine to want to perfect your technique, to perfect, aspects of your life, but understanding that nobody is perfect is something that we really need to start thinking about and embracing, especially in science, okay? Science never goes how we want it to go. And even the best scientists are gonna come up with hypotheses and directions that they don't pan out, okay? If we knew how it was gonna pan out, then the experiment's not worth doing. Experiments are only worth doing if you don't know the answer, right? If you already knew the answer, there's no point in doing the experiment. So sometimes you're gonna do an experiment and think it's gonna go one way and it just doesn't, right? And that's gonna happen. In fact, it's gonna happen more often than it won't. And so we need to start breaking that mindset of I have to be perfect. I have to have all the answers. This is not true. What you do need to do is know who to look for answers, or where to look for answers, how to develop new hypotheses. That's what we're trying to do. Make it where even if we don't know the answer, we know exactly where to look and how to develop knowledge on a particular situation. Not needing to know every single detail of everything. That's not what being a scientist is about, okay? So the last thing that we really need to do is just feel better about ourselves. And I know that this is like, oh, wow, well, if I was able to feel better about myself, like I would have already done it. As someone that's, dealt with, anxiety before, I get it that like sometimes it's hard to change your own, outlook on life. But I think what we need to do is we need to start celebrating that we're doing okay. If you're watching this, that means that you're in a graduate program. It means that you are doing a postdoc, or you're an undergrad thinking about going to grad school. It means that you're in a position where you're doing what you want with your career and you care enough that you've actually searched out advice on how to improve your mindset in different areas, to get advice for how to move your career forward, okay? That means that you're already 3 steps ahead of everybody else. So if you're watching this and you feel like, well, I have this imposter syndrome, maybe I don't quite get it, maybe I shouldn't be here. No, it's the opposite. If you're watching this, it means you care enough about your own career to try to make it better. And you need to, accept that inside and say, yeah, I could do this. I could keep moving forward. So with that, I'm gonna wrap it up. I hope this was, valuable to at least some people. I know that I had a hard time with imposter syndrome at multiple stages in my career. And I know a lot of the people that I looked around me and I thought like, wow, this person totally gets it. Like, they're like the smartest person I've ever met. Like, they also had imposter syndrome. So, don't feel like you're alone, all right? I'll catch you guys in the next one. I hope this was helpful. Bye.